Hello everyone, I'm Heather, the doll contractor, and welcome to my channel. Today, I'll be building a twin-size bed. I'll be using a cutting mat, ruler, glue, cardboard, paper, ribbon, pencil, scissors, X-Acto knife, paint, a paintbrush, and a brown paper bag. Alright, let's get building. Now the first thing I need to do was to figure out how long I want the bed to be. I used my mini-me to figure out the length. After deciding, I marked it with my pencil. Next, I used my ruler to make a straight line on the mark to know where I needed to cut. Next, I used my X-Acto knife to cut on the line. Now, I would use my ruler to keep my cuts straight. And now for the sides. Deciding how tall I wanted the bed to be, once again I used my mini-me to figure out the height I wanted it to be. So I marked where I wanted to cut. And again, I used my X-Acto knife to cut it to the desired size. Using the first side piece, I marked where I needed to cut so they would match. Once that was done, I then proceeded to cut it to size. I really hope all of you are having a good day so far. Comment down below, what makes you happy? Mine are silly dog videos on YouTube. For the front piece, I used one of the side pieces to get the height. I then marked it and proceeded to cut it to size. I used hot glue to start connecting the front and side pieces together. I honestly wasn't sure how good my glue job would be. Guess I was right, huh? I'm sorry about all the shots of my wrist. I'm still trying to get used to this new setup. Before connecting the pieces together, I need to make sure they match in length. I used the top of the bed to mark where I need to cut. I used scissors to cut on the marks on each side so they match in length. That looks like a good fit. To connect the top to the side pieces, I used hot glue. I flipped it over to add more hot glue on the inside. To cover up my not-so-great glue job, I used a brown paper bag. I cut out the back side from the paper bag. I'll be using this to cover the top of the bed. I originally used hot glue to glue down the paper bag, and it didn't work out so well, so I switched to a glue stick. It definitely worked out a lot better for me. I rubbed the top down to make sure it was secured. I used a glue stick on one of the side flaps to glue it down, pressing it down to make sure it's connected. I repeated the same steps on the other side. To clean up some of the edges, I cut the top corners and glued them down with my glue stick. I'm sorry about the bad angle here. Still really trying to get used to this new setup. Not an excuse though, but I don't know. I touched up the glue on the side flaps because they kept coming up. I forgot to record myself wrapping the paper bag over the edges, then gluing them down with my glue stick. To decide how tall I wanted the headboard, I eyeballed where I wanted it to stop and then marked it. I used my ruler to make a line on the mark, and then cut it with my X-Acto knife. To cover the headboard with paper, I used my glue stick. I cut off some of the bottom of the paper since I wouldn't be using it. Since I'm going to be wrapping the edges, I started by folding the bottom over the edge and gluing it down. I wanted to know where the bed and headboard would meet, so I marked where it was going to be. I used my scissors to cut on the mark. Then, using my ruler and pencil, I made a line on the other side. I used my scissors to cut on the line. Using my glue stick, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. Anyway, using my other glue stick, I secured the two flaps to the cardboard. Making two more cuts, one on each corner. I then glued the side flaps to the cardboard. After folding over the final flap, I secured it to the cardboard with glue. I wrapped and glued the extra over to the other side. Don't worry, it's going to be covered up. Taking my ribbon, I used my glue gun to glue it near the middle. I then began to wrap it around the back while gluing it down. Once I returned to the side I started on, I used my scissors to cut the ribbon and glued it down. I repeated the process until it was covered completely. I used the glue stick cap to push down on the ribbon where I glued it so I wouldn't burn my fingers. I thought it was a really good idea. Made a bit of a mess on the cap, but I'll take it over getting burnt fingers. This glue gun kept jamming up on me multiple times during this entire video. Wanting to make sure the bed had good support, I had a piece of cardboard, but since it was a little too big, I used my scissors to cut it to fit, then hot glued it inside. I painted the bed black to try to blend everything together. I wanted to cover up where the paper bag couldn't, because I personally didn't like it. I proceeded to paint all three sides. I didn't want to paint the top. I don't remember what I had in mind. I didn't record anything, so there's that, I guess. Unfortunately, the bottom just didn't work for me, so I used the ribbon that I used for the headboard to cover them up. So using my glue gun, I started by gluing the ribbon inside the base, then wrapped it around the sides while gluing it every now and then. Once all the way around, I cut it and glued it inside. I did the same thing one more time. After finishing the second ribbon, I decided to touch up the paint a bit. Now, after an accident that I unfortunately didn't record, they happen. So I used part of the paper bag and glued it down using my glue stick. I turned it over and used my X-Acto knife to trim it down on the sides. It's finally time to connect the headboard to the rest of the bed. Using hot glue, I joined the headboard to the rest of the bed. With the final touches of hot glue, the bed has been built. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of my paint job, but nonetheless, I'm proud of my work. This was a great experience for me. I'm really happy, and I really hope all of you guys are happy. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. I'm Heather, and until next time, never stop building your creativity.